Let's get to one of the big corporate stories today. We're talking about Apple. Apple's chief executive officer, Steve Jobs, has been on medical leave since January, and we now know that he had a liver transplant about 2 months ago. So, is this an issue that investors have the right to know about? John Coffey, professor of securities law at Columbia Law School, says he expects as much criticism to go to the SEC as to Apple. Professor Coffey joins us right now from their studios at the university. Professor Coffey, good to have you back on Bloomberg. Good afternoon.
My pleasure.
Hey, so does Apple have a responsibility to its investors to disclose exactly what is going on with the health of Steve Jobs, in your view?
Well, exactly is too strong a word. The first thing you have to say is that the SEC has never given clear guidance on this topic. They've been lobbied by both sides, and they've sort of ducked. All they've been willing to say is that a company cannot make a materially false statement about a chief executive's health. But if there ever is a case in which a chief executive's health is material to the company, it's probably Apple. Steve Jobs stands in relation to Apple as Henry Ford stood to Ford Motor or Walt Disney to the Walt Disney Company 25 years ago.
Right. Well, you know, that brings up a good point, you know, Professor Coffey, because Steve Jobs has presided over every major Apple product launch since July. I mean, many investors see him as the kind of the company or corporate visionary. So does it make Apple kind of a unique case here?
I think it's the strongest case you can have for saying the CEO health is material on these facts. And I think Apple probably recognized this because the facts strongly suggest that Apple did leak this information on Friday after the close of the market and link with positive news so that this news about his health would not be totally a downward influence on the market.
Right.
That all suggests that it came from Apple, even though the Wall Street Journal would not indicate any source. And I think Apple had some concern that if they didn't get this news out, possible future developments, if things did take a turn for the worse, could leave them exposed to litigation.
All right. From what I also understand, some Apple directors were aware of the surgery. Some board members were getting weekly briefings on his conditions by his physician. I think this was according to the Wall Street Journal. What about the directors and board members, Professor Coffey? What responsibility do they have, especially if they knew some information?
Well, I think the board probably has to make a collective decision. And Apple can decide to release this in a way that isn't directly attributed to Apple. Again, I think there is some possibility that directors may have pushed Apple and its general counsel and the senior management to release this on a non-attributed basis,
right,
which is essentially what happened on Friday.
On the flip side, you know, take a look at Apple stock. It's doing very well. The company's doing very well. It's got some new product launches that are out there. I was at the Apple Developers Conference in San Francisco earlier this month, and everybody I talked to said while they would have loved to have seen Steve Jobs there, they think, you know what, the company's doing really well. And one even said to me that investors, that Apple really needs to get investors ready for a company, an Apple without Steve Jobs. So at the same time, they're doing okay. So does that put the company in a different position in terms of disclosing information?
Well, I think you've touched on the second theme here, which is this is not only a disclosure issue, this is a corporate governance issue, and Apple has got to be a little bit more forthcoming about what its future plans are. They obviously have discussed this, and there seems to be a titular CEO in the wings who's now the chief operating officer, but they're unwilling to say anything at a time in which it might make Mr. Jobs uncomfortable to announce who his likely successor was. But that's the other issue here. Apple needs to tell its shareholders what they think will be their future progression after Jobs, because life after Jobs is a big, big change for Apple.
But legally, do they have to?
Again, courts could well find this. Courts could well find that they made prior misstatements. You may recall about 6 months ago when a statement came out that Mr. Jobs' illness was due to hormonal imbalances.
Right.
That no longer looks accurate. We think we now know what really happened.
Right. Professor Cook, got about 20 seconds here. Steve Jobs is supposed to go back to work at the end of this month. Once that happens, does the company then have to disclose everything about his health, and just quickly?
Certainly not everything. You have to disclose only information that changes the total mix of information. You don't have to give his daily temperature, but you've got to indicate that what happened to him and what the prognosis is.
All right, so not a blow-by-blow, but definitely some more information. All right, going to leave it there.
Okay.
Professor Coffey, thank you so much. Columbia Law Professor John Coffey.